Oh, hello. Hi. Hey, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to another awesome Hack the Box AMA. I mean, I'm sure y'all can tell I'm excited today. We have a really cool guest. It's someone that I'm personally very excited to have on the show that I've been following him for a little while. Pink Draconian, awesome guy in the cybersecurity community. Let's go ahead and bring him on. And Pink, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, just say a little bit about yourself for the good people. Here, let's go ahead, pull you onto the stage. And there, oh, I think I clicked at the same time. Hey, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so happy to be on here and to be talking with all of you. So I'll quickly introduce myself. So I am Pink Draconian. I started hacking about 6 years ago, and right now I'm working as a penetration tester. So it's become from a hobby, it become a day job, which is really awesome. Outside of that, I want to teach as much of the skills that I've learned to other people. So I do that on YouTube. I make posts on LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's in a really short little bite what I do and who I am.
Awesome. Thank you so much for introducing yourself to the good people in the audience. And thank you so much, everyone that's here, either after the fact or live. If you're live, you're here live, rather, you're cooler. You know who you are. But if you're watching this after the fact, I mean, you're still pretty cool. Heck yeah. By the way, just as a quick thank you, Pink, for logging into chat and saying hi to the good people in chat. Really appreciate that. Now, you mentioned that you got into hacking 6 years ago, and this isn't on my list of questions we got, so I'm going to catch you off guard here right away. Got to keep you on your toes. What drew you initially to hacking? What was there like one big thing? Was it just like a lifelong interest? Could you speak to that?
Yeah, I think for me, I was always thinking, well, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want to become? I had no idea. And when I was 16, I started dabbling a bit into like creating websites and silly things like that, which was cool. That was fun. I liked it. I liked being able to make stuff. But I also always, and then since I was a kid, I always tried to cheat at every single game I played.
So that's what it is.
Yeah. I was always trying to win. And well, if you're trying to win, if the rules don't explicitly state you're not allowed to do something, I'm doing it. And and then I started building websites, and I started seeing, okay, now the rules is kind of the code that I write, and if I bend these rules and do things around that can lead to interesting behavior. And back then I had no idea like what was even going on. I mean, back then I was literally making websites to shame my friends and post like ugly pictures of them on there. And I was like, oh, the internet allows this. Guess this is what I'm doing. So it started like that, but it's really silly stuff. But then I stumbled upon this YouTube channel, and you will all know it, Live Overflow. And I was like, wow, this is like the coding tutorials that I'm doing, but then hacking tutorials. That is insane that this exists. And I still remember like, as a 16-year-old, just watching those videos, and I genuinely had no idea what was going on. Like I knew nothing. I was just watching in awe of like, this is magic. There's bytes going, flying across the screen, and somehow this guy knows what they mean, and that kind of that stuck with me, because then after that, like for 2 years, I was just doing silly stuff and making silly websites, and never really got back to hacking. Until I went to college and I had like a class on security, and all of a sudden all those things that I saw in videos over the years were explained to me, like what the basics of it is, and it all started making sense, and that's kind of when the ball really got going, and well, this is the end result, I guess.
That's a great way of summing up a ton of work. This is the end result, I guess. Oh my gosh. I had some questions in there, but I lost my train of thought. You're getting a lot of love in chat. Just putting that out there.
Thank you.
Oh man. Oh, quick shout out to Live Overflow. Crazy talented dude. He makes truly awesome videos. Like if I ever want to see black magic done in the form of hacking, I go and watch his videos, because he's crazy talented. So, oh no, I'm there with you. No, that's a really unique journey. I thought for a minute you were going to start describing how you created Facebook with creating websites in the beginning.
Oh, no. Very low level, like struggling with CSS type of level.
Wait, you're saying CSS isn't a programming language? Come on. Oh, wait, what?
I thought we were not going to talk about like very political things here.
I did say no politics. I get what other controversial opinions can I make you state on stream? You got to see me headbanging to the music beforehand, so I don't know. I feel like I can kind of push your buttons a little bit. Well, I should probably get to the actual questions we were asked. Thank you so much for talking about how you got into hacking. It's such a unique journey, and it's always cool that everyone has such kind of their own path getting into this. I'm sure you've seen that too.
Yeah, definitely. And it's what makes hacking really cool. I really often I get the question, well, what is the pathway into becoming a hacker? And I really hate that question. Actually, it's stupid because as an industry, we don't want cookie cutter people that are able to do the exact same thing, that follow the exact same path. What we want is passionate people who carved their own path, who saw something and was like, I wonder how that works, and just rolled into it that way and started getting deeper into things that they're interested in. If you give 1 million people a basic SQL injection course, that's great. I'm sure all the SQL injections get solved. But what about the prototype solutions? And what about the XSSs? Like, you need people to have different skills. And now I'm only talking about web applications. There's also mobile and all the other stuff, reverse engineering, binary exploitation, cloud. You need people to follow their own passion. So that's why I always say to people, just choose something that you like and dig as deep as you can. Go down that rabbit hole, because I've done this multiple times. Like, for a couple of months, I was like, cryptography is now very interesting. So I'm going to spend a couple of months just focusing solely on cryptography and going really deep into that.
That sounds awful. That sounds like hell.
It is hell. And after 3 months, you realize, wow, this is hell. And then you move on to something else. But then 3 years down the line, you come across something in your job and you're like, whoa, that thing that I looked into for no apparent reason 3 years ago in cryptography is now helping me find the critical bug. Like, that's kind of the way it should go. And if everybody always follows the exact same path, then you're not getting those cool things. Yeah.
You're saying I have to think when I'm doing this? Oh, man.
Exactly.
Real quick, I did want to pause and let everyone in chat know that we had an awesome question from Astra, just clarifying. This is an AMA. This isn't Ask Me Anything. Feel free to put your questions in chat. I have a number of questions that were submitted, and keep an eye out on Twitter. We often do question submissions. Sometimes we'll have prizes associated with that, just for funsies. Just as, hey, submit a question, you might get a prize for this. But feel free to put your questions in chat. And now that I've mentioned that and done my civic duty to get our questions from chat, I say this. I had census paperwork come in the mail yesterday. Dude, what the hell? Anyhow, I said we weren't going to get political here. We started with CSS and now we're on this. You got a little bit into advice as I drag you around between topics there for a moment. You get a little bit into your advice for folks that are getting into the field. What would you recommend for someone that wanted to start CVE hunting, or more generally hacking? Kind of pick and choose what you want there. I realize I'm giving you a broad question. Really looking for beginner advice for people that would like to do what you're doing, or kind of the sect of hacking that you're in.
Yeah, I think the first thing you have to ask yourself if you want to get into hacking is, what is the reason that I want to get into hacking? If the reason is I just want to make a lot of money, then, well, I'm sorry to tell you that's not going to happen, most likely. If the reason is that you're just very interested in how things work, awesome. That's the perfect reason, or one of the reasons that would really help you. And you need to have kind of an internal passion for how things work and how you can break things, which is very important. But if you have that, then you're ready to go on to the next step. And that is to kind of figure out, like, what do I want to become good at? And in this case, you can pick literally anything, just any topic you're interested in. If you're very interested in web applications, then go for web applications. If you're deep into mobile, then go look at mobile applications. If you're like very deep into Linux at the moment, then maybe we'll focus on doing some Linux stuff. I would say pick what you're already kind of good at, or things that you already kind of understand. If you have a background in building web applications, then choose for web applications. If you have a background in cloud computing, then go into cloud. And from there are so many free tutorials out there on the internet. And in anything that you want to do, there are free resources out there. And just spend a week looking around at what there is out there. Watch a ton of YouTube videos, read a ton of blogs, and see what kind of information you can gather from that. Is this a topic that still interests you after a week, or after a week you have an idea of, holy shit, this is not nothing for me, and probably you should switch. But if you at that point you still feel really motivated into that topic, that is the point where you can either follow your own path or go ask for advice on how do I proceed with my journey in mobile security or whatnot. And I feel like a lot of people do not get to that step. They want to become a hacker, which is awesome, but then they kind of forget to choose what they want to do, and they just start lingering in the middle and have no clue. But this is also where like platforms like Hack the Box can come in very handy, because you have very basic, easy challenges for a lot of different categories. So you can like try out a couple of challenges here and there, read some write-ups and realize, okay, this I found interesting. Oh, this blockchain, hate it. Oh, this I hate it. Crypto probably will hate it, but it's also really cool if you dig deeper. So that's kind of where you can go look around. And there are a lot of free options out there. This is like one thing that I hate is when people tell you, oh, it's impossible to become a pen tester if you don't pay for really expensive certifications or that kind of stuff. This is something actually, like when I started hacking, one of the first people I talked to, they told me, in this economy, it's impossible to become a pen tester unless you're very best, and you need to have all the certifications, and no company's looking for pen testers, and they're only looking for blue teamers. And I was like, oh, wow. I didn't expect that. So my whole dream was kind of shattered because somebody told me it was impossible. But then I figured, well, why don't I prove him wrong? Like, screw that. I'm going to show you that it is possible, that you don't need insanely expensive certifications. So kind of the next 3 years, I delved into finding ways of making myself attractive in the job markets without having to pay a single penny for anything. And it worked out really well, because I started with realizing that, okay, I have to prove to an employer that I have good skills. So I started playing CTFs every single week. Every single weekend, I was spending my whole weekend on playing CTFs. And turns out after a while, I got pretty good at it after 2 years, because I start to see patterns and stuff. And I won a big CTF in Belgium. And actually, my first employer was part of that CTF, and I got connected to him via that means. So that's awesome. And then I was like, okay, now I can show employers that I have the skills. I don't need a certification to show my skills. What else is important? Well, okay, employers or pen testers, they should also be able to talk about vulnerabilities, because you're going to have to write reports and talk with clients and all that stuff. So maybe I should get better at talking. So I started a YouTube channel. I figured, well, if I can find vulnerabilities in CTFs and Hack the Box, then I'm probably, well, I should also be able to explain those to other people, because just exploiting something is not enough. You really know a topic if you can explain it to somebody else.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, and that's kind of the whole reason why I started making YouTube videos. And well, that worked out great. People seem to like that content, and that was crazy to me. I thought I was making it for nobody, but turns out that some people actually liked it. And well, now I could do the hacking, I could do the talking, and then if I applied for a job, I would just tell them, like, look, I don't like certifications. Here is a list of all these videos that I've made. Here's a list of all the CTS that I've won. If you don't believe that I have the skills to do the job, then I don't want to work for your company. And well, it seems like a lot of managers actually related with that. And well, I got a cool job. So yeah.
Heck yeah. That's such a cool journey. Man, you gave me a lot of questions to ask to follow up on that. Real quick, I wanted to just toss out there for chat. Y'all are coming up with some awesome questions. Even if I'm not necessarily responding to them in chat, I am reading every message, and I do have a number of them starred. So thank you for all of the awesome questions. If y'all have any more questions, feel free to check them out there. I can't promise I'll get to all of them, but I will do my best to get to them. And I'm sure that Pink can also see them in chat. And feel free, if there's one that you see and you want to answer, feel free to let me know. Sure. Now, you mentioned, there's a couple things I want to hit on. First off, you mentioned some free resources online. We'll get to this at the end too, but would you mind telling the good people where they can find your content at? some quality for your sources.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, if you go onto YouTube and you just search for my name, Pink Draconian, then you can find over 100 videos. I think maybe even 200 videos, because at some point in the beginning, I decided to make a video every single day. Like in the beginning.
Oh my gosh, that's so exhausting.
Yeah, I was dedicated. I was like, I'm gonna make it, and made a lot of content. There are a lot of very bad videos, but there are also some good ones. So if you kind of go through the weeds, and you might find some actually good content that you can enjoy. And besides that, follow me on Twitter and send me an invite on LinkedIn. I think that's how it's called, because there I also post a lot of stuff. So yeah.
I'll have to add you on LinkedIn. I don't know if I've actually added you there yet, but I will fix that later.
I realized like after Twitter, it's not Twitter, became X.
No, I'm dead naming that site. I have no problem dead naming his crappy website. Go on.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just switched to LinkedIn because I realized LinkedIn is a much better place, and like actual security content can have value there, and it's not like only the BS that gets a lot of likes, but actual proper content can exist there. And yeah, so it's also a good platform, definitely for employers as well. Like post there. If you write a cool blog post, post it on Twitter for the lead hackers, but also post it on LinkedIn, because there's also some managers that want to seem like they're lead and try to keep up. And well, that's where they do it.
That's such a good way of representing yourself too. I didn't want to dip into one question. This is something that I see a lot, and admittedly, this is a question from myself. We've seen on Reddit and other places that there are these subreddits. I'm sure you've seen them, LinkedIn lunatics. How do you strike a balance between making sure that, you're being creative and being yourself and not being, a little too much? I can come back to this as well. I realize I'm putting you on the spot. So
No. It's a very good question, because I recently actually had a very popular comment on somebody else's post on LinkedIn, where they made a post about bypassing the CSP, and they wrote some JavaScript that steals the nonce from another script and puts it to your own script. And I just commented, if you need JavaScript to bypass a CSP, then you already need a CSP bypass to bypass the CSP, because you can't execute JavaScript without having. So it didn't make any sense, and I commented that, and I got a lot of likes. So there's a lot of people posting things on LinkedIn because they just read something somewhere and it's not correct, it's not fact checked, it's very low effort. I've even seen people just copy pasting other people's blog posts and posting that in places. If something is really low effort, people will notice that it's low effort. I'm not saying that there's no place for low effort content.
That was an interesting way of saying that.
Yeah, there may be some, like, there are people that got very popular making low effort content. So there is definitely place for, if you want to kind of make yourself very attractive to employers, to other hackers, and kind of maintain a good reputation within the community, then I think it's very important that you look at making like content that people actually want to share, content that both serves beginners but also won't make real experts mad because you're just lying. And I've had somebody tell me once, you only have one reputation in cybersecurity. The field is really small. If you ruin your reputation, it's for silly reasons, for just personal gain of getting a couple more followers. Well, that would just be silly. So if you're thinking of making, of just posting other people's blog posts without giving them any credits or whatnot, don't. It's really cool to share other people's blog posts. I do it all the time, but I always give them credits and tell them how awesome they are, and don't claim it as your own. Just be genuine, be a good person. But that doesn't always seem to be easy. I don't know.
No, that's a good way of putting it. Thank you for digging into that. That was admittedly a really interesting answer, and I really appreciate you diving into some of the nuances there, especially with being focused on, I guess, being a good person. Did you want to speak to that at all within this field, like how morality and, I guess, not being a garbage person kind of helps?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we are all kind of crazy people. That as a hacker, you are a crazy
Hey,
person.
speak for yourself.
Okay, so I will only speak of myself. I am crazy. I don't know how many types of people can spend 6 years living in their basement, and I actually lived in the basement for 6 years doing hacking. I finally moved out, and now I have Windows. It's just like totally new to me.
Like, what? This is that's unhealthy for hackers. How are you not sunburnt?
Yeah, exactly. So I use a lot of sunscreen now, so my bills have kind of gone up. But we are like, the stereotypes are for a part correct. We are basement dwellers. We like to wear hoodies. You have to be a very specific type of person to be able to constantly have the focus to look at non-existing things, websites, apps, like not real things, and try to find little bugs and focus on 10 lines of code for an hour because you think that something there is not exactly correct. That takes a special kind of person. But you're also still living in a real world with real people with expectations and families and dignity. So sometimes you have to make sure that you're not too weird, and definitely if you have like very weird senses of humor, for example, try to make sure that you kind of feel the room and see where things can be applicable, because out of context some things may sound really weird, and like I said, you only have one reputation within the hacking community, and you don't really want to burn it too easily. So make sure that you're aware of that kind of don't be scared of it, be yourself still, but sometimes feel the room and then see where things work and where things don't.
Absolutely. That's really good advice, especially with DEF CON coming up and so many folks being there. That's a really important place to make sure that, you're behaving. Unless you're me, I can't promise I'm going to behave. We had a really cool question in chat. I wanted to make sure I started getting to the questions in chat. This one's from TMZ at Parrot. I don't know if you've spoken about this before. How did you come up with your name? How did you find your username?
Yes, so I went through a host of usernames in the past. I used to, before I did security, I was kind of addicted to gaming. Back in the day, I was called Chili Peppers, Penguin Kingdom, King Slimy.
That's amazing.
These were some of the terrible names I came up with as a 12-year-old. So when I started getting into hacking, I kind of wanted to rebrand myself and not be King Slimy, but be a normal name.
Honestly, that's a great username. I don't know. Go on.
I actually, for like last year, I finally had a YouTube video beat my previous best and most watched YouTube video, which was a Minecraft video from 2008 that got like 20K views at some point, as King Slimy with my very deep voice back then as an 8-year-old. So yeah, that was a whole period. Now I'm called Pink Draconian, and I put a lot of thought into this name. And I don't know if many people here know what the word draconian means, but it's an English word, an adjective that stems back from Greek times, where the emperor Draco was an emperor, and he was known to be insanely. He was known to be the first one to actually make written laws, but his laws, they were insane. Like if you cheated on your wife, you'd get killed, stuff like that. So for like, you would get pretty much any law, you would get killed. If you did something wrong, you would get killed. It's kind of what his laws were.
Yeah.
And draconian kind of means a really strong law. So a law can be draconian if it's like really strong. And I like that in a security context, because if we're talking about like access controls or rules of an application, right now your application has to be draconian in what it allows. Like you need to make sure that you only allow what is actually allowed. And then I thought, well, I need something to add to that adjective. And I chose the color pink because it's such a happy color, and I wanted my name to also be happy. Pink is like, nobody thinks of bad things when you talk about pink, and that kind of fits perfectly with draconian. And yeah, that's kind of why I came up with the name Pink Draconian.
I wish I had put that much effort in my username. I'm pretty sure mine's just a reference to my old RuneScape name at this point. That's really cool. I had never heard how you would come up with your username. Thank you for speaking to that, and thank you TMZ for asking that as well. That was a great question. Now we're getting a lot of really fun questions in here. Let's see. So I guess before we start getting into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about, you have a really cool project that you mentioned to me when we were setting up this AMA. Would you mind speaking to that? I can kind of introduce it if you want.
No, totally. I'd be happy to introduce it. So, at some point in your career or what you're doing, you kind of lose a sense of a goal to work towards. After I got my job, I was, doing my goal was doing my job really well. When it turned out that I was pretty good at my job, I needed a new goal, and so I talked to my manager, and he was like, "Okay, what if you get 50 CVEs?" And I was like, "Ah, 50. Let's try to make it 100 CVEs." Um, just as a crazy goal, something I never thought I could achieve. And I picked this goal because I think CVEs are really cool. They're real bugs that you can show off to people, because I had done some bug bounty in the past, but I couldn't share anything about my bugs. It was all, I found a cool bug in a company that I cannot name. You know, I wanted something shareable that I could share to the world, that I could share to everybody, saying like, look, I hacked all of these cool projects. I made so many projects secure. That sounded like something really cool. And CVEs, I liked them for a long time. So that's why I picked this goal that seemed impossible. So 100 CVEs, and I gave myself 1 year. Now we're past the half point in the year, and I'm at 33. So I'm lagging a bit behind, but that's also because kind of the scope of this goal has changed for myself. I noticed very quickly that it was not hard to find CVEs. And I really believe that for anybody here, whatever skill level, it is not hard to get a CVE. So after my first 5 days of like actually hunting, I found like 12 CVEs. And at that point, I realized, okay, it is definitely possible, but do I want to spend my time finding vulnerabilities in small projects? Because in the beginning, I was mainly focusing on small projects, and it's cool. You find a CVE that kind of secures 1,000 public sites out there, or public instances or products out there. That's cool. But after a while, kind of the dopamine of, oh cool, I found a new bug that secures 1,000 websites starts dropping. So I wanted to go bigger. So I kind of chose to change the goal to how many products can I make secure versus just an amount of CVEs. It's worked out great so far, because I found some vulnerabilities in projects that have over 10 million downloads every month, which is really cool. So some big AI frameworks. I found one in a big framework from NVIDIA. So there's some really cool stuff there. And yeah, I also wanted to prove to everybody, because CVEs, they are, if you see them coming by, there's a new CVE for this product, everybody goes crazy. It's fun. So people attribute a lot of value to having a CVE, and then you don't even actually have CVEs. It's like not really like that, but people attribute a lot of value to it. And this is also in my quest, and this is probably going to be a quest for my lifetime, to show people that you don't need to pay a lot of money to get good at hacking, or to get a job. Like if you can show an employer, hey, look, I have 10 CVEs, that speaks a lot, and managers will attribute a lot of value to that. So it's a great free way of also getting real life experience, which is why I wanted to prove to the world that it's not difficult to find a CVE. And I think personally I've proven that, but I've also helped other people prove that. One of my colleagues, he was a junior, just starting out, had never found any bugs, was just learning about XSS. And I spent like 2 hours hunting with him on a project with like 2K stars on GitHub. So a smaller project, but still a decent size. And within those 2 hours, we found 3 CVEs together. Like that, and one of them was like fully found by him alone. Like he had never done any security before. And that just shows like you don't need to have insane skills to find some cool bugs and to actually help real people. And that's also something that is very important to me, is that right now I'm kind of talking about CVEs as accolades. They are not. Personally, I like to for myself, I've set this goal, but don't treat CVEs as accolades. you're impacting real projects, real people, this is all real. This is not a game anymore. So make sure that you also have respect for developers, and that you're going to find vulnerabilities in open source applications where the developers don't want to upgrade anymore. Take care into what you make public and what you don't make public. Because CVEs are very public, and you also need to have that common sense of, is this okay what I'm doing and whatnot. So that's also very important. But I highly suggest everybody to just look at a product that you see around you. And I even did this with my lights that I have. So I have these lights here. I actually hacked them. I found a vulnerability in them. It's not disclosed yet, so I won't go deeper into exactly what they are and what it is. But like, just look around you and look at how the things around you are built, and you will find that they are built on small open source repositories, and there's actually a lot of things out there that are built upon. Like if you look for Log4j, for example, that's the best example I can give is Log4j. Everybody knows it. It was a repository maintained by a single guy that the whole wide world used. There are a ton of repositories like that where really, really simple bugs are still hiding in plain sight. You can probably write a query on GitHub to look through code right now. It finds like 20 vulnerable repositories for some simple vulnerabilities. So it's not that hard, but it has great value in the real world. And it's also kind of a cool way to prove yourself. So I would say to everybody in chat, try and make it your goal to find like 1 or 2 CVEs by the end of the year. Maybe that can be a cool goal. Hopefully I can inspire some people to do that and make the world safer, because that is, of course, the overarching goal is find bugs before the bad guys do, so we make the world safer.
And I can tell you do YouTube videos for sure, because, or I'm noticing it on our AMA conversation, because not I'll wind you up and let you go, but you're giving really great answers. And I really appreciate that. So thank you for going so in depth and speaking to the motives and all this. I just say that as something, appreciating it for the audience, because it's something I appreciate. So now you mentioned something really cool. Okay, first and foremost, let's actually go back to the gaming comment. Do you have a favorite video game?
Oh yes, I have 2.
You can mention multiple. That's okay.
And in this game, I have way too many hours in it. I think I have like 2,000-3,000 hours in it. It's a Rocket League. Oh my god!
I should have known. I should have known it'd be Rocket League.
I still have like hidden in like some playlists. I have some Rocket League clips from back in the day. And actually, right now, this is really fun because my girlfriend, she was never really a gamer, but I'm turning her into a gamer. So now I'm playing Rocket League with her and carrying her in games and making other people really mad because I'm carrying her. It's a lot of fun. But then besides Rocket League, I also really love PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, PUBG.
Ooh, good old PUBG.
Yeah, I am terrible at it. Like honestly, there's a reason that I picked a job where I just have to think and not do anything with my hands and aim or whatnot, because I am terrible at it, but it's so much fun. Yeah.
What do I do with my hands? I'm gonna stop myself before this gets worse. Okay, so the cool thing you mentioned, you talked a little bit about you found a bug in an NVIDIA framework, and that's pretty hold on, you can quote me on this. That's pretty damn cool. So can you speak to that? Is that something that's public? And if so, would you mind linking that in chat? Just because that's super cool.
Public. Sadly, it was a duplicate. So I think I was like 2 days later than the first guy who found it. So that's sad. But it was a bug in their Triton inference server. So it's like an AI inference server, which is very commonly used. And the bug was pretty cool because they, for some reason, their API endpoint had a parameter log file where you could choose the log file where logs were going to be written. It was undocumented as far as I know, but by looking at the source code, I found this and I said, okay, what if I make the log file the .bashrc file?
Oh no.
Yep, at that point, all the logs went into the bashrc file, and then I just had to find the log injection where I could just write arbitrary data into the log file, and that way, anytime the actual user would log in, my code would execute. there are a ton of different ways to exploit this because there's so many files in Linux that you can write into to gain code execution. But yeah, that's a pretty cool one. I'll see if I can find it quickly.
Yeah, if you don't mind. That's, oh gosh, no, that is cool. Thank you for speaking to as well how you found that with looking at the source code. Did you mentioned that was an undocumented feature. Was that like a website parameter that you found, like an API? Did you use any tools like parameter scrubbers or fuzzers rather? Anything like that, or just find it with the source code? I realize I'm putting you on the spot where you're looking for this.
Yeah, no worries. I posted a link in the private chat. I can't post it on YouTube. Let's see if it works now.
Here. I can post it for you.
Yep. So that's a report. It's a really cool website as well. Hunter. It's like a company that does AI security, and they pretty much said we want to make the AI world safer, so we're gonna pay for bugs in open source AI projects, which is really cool. Definitely recommend checking it out. Sorry, can you repeat your question? Because I was doing too.
No, you're good. Just as one quick mention for putting links in chat, if you don't mind as well, if you want to post your YouTube link or if you have a website, anything like that in our private chat, I will repost that in our main chat as well, just so that the good people can go and check that out.
Yeah, perfect.
What I was speaking to was a lot of times when you're doing website hacking, web hacking, or API hacking in general, a lot of folks will use, and I'll grab your links there. Thank you. I appreciate it. So a lot of folks will employ parameter fuzzing and other similar tools. Did you find that you use any tools like that? I realize we're getting a little specific here, but I'd just like to talk a little bit about kind of what that actually looks like hunting for that vuln.
So I'm someone, I don't use a lot of tools. Honestly, I barely even use Burp to its fullest. I like to do a lot of things manual. And sometimes I'll even go into a project with just the Firefox browser, and I'll modify requests in the inspector tools. Like,
that's hardcore.
Yeah, like that's tools can be great and can find cool things, but everybody uses the same tools in the same exact configurations, and it gets really boring. Definitely, if you're like running a bug bounty, or if you're a company running a bug bounty and you have like a false positive that every major tool finds, God, that's terrible, because nobody checks if their tools are actually correct. So I like to do things very manual. I also really like searching for vulnerabilities in open source libraries, because when you can see the code, you can dig much deeper and find much more technical vulnerabilities. Like, I found this bug in a project called Pilot. I think it's called Pilot. It was like a project that you would install to download movies and content from, and I never even got it set up properly to find this bug, but yeah, I did find a pretty cool bug there that would have never been discovered otherwise. But this project was running on Flask, and they had this one endpoint where you could render template files, but only template files existing on the system. So unless you were able to actually upload files, which is not possible, you wouldn't be able to exploit this in any way. It's not really a vulnerability in itself. But they just happened to have a template file on their system that had would use a variable called config. And in Flask, if the config variable is a global, so if you don't override it, it actually contains all your environment variables and stuff like that, and your Flask secret token. And so because I could load this template file to contain the variable config, just by pure chance, because they chose that variable name, if they had chose configs or anything else, it would not have been vulnerable. But this just public application showed the secret token and the JWT secret token and all that stuff. And that was like a vulnerability probably never would have been discovered if not for being able to read the code. So yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, it goes to show that there's so much benefit to, stepping through the code, really taking your time with that. Thank you for speaking to that. I did want to take a quick diversion. We have some love coming in from some other YouTubers. We have CryptoCat who's popped in and said hi. Thank you so much for popping in.
Thanks, CryptoCat. Yeah, CryptoCat is an amazing YouTuber as well. Check him out. Actually, for a very short time, we were colleagues, which was awesome. So thanks for popping by.
That is cool. I never knew that. No, that's awesome. Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you for talking to the specifics of that. That is a very, I mean, what are the odds? What are the odds that they name it that variable? I mean, then again, I'm sure you see that a lot of what are the odds you would name it something silly like this?
Oh yeah,
It's usually better than you think.
Definitely when you have like this, I have this all the time where you find like a really strange, small, tiny behavior of this application does this in a very weird way, and if these and all of these other prerequisites match, then this would be a great vulnerability, and you start looking into it, and oh, this one is there, this prerequisite is there, this prerequisite is there, and all of a sudden this tiny behavior just blows up. I love those kind of bugs that like are so silly in itself, but that just exploded. And like I had one where this website would it would cache your data in some weird way where it would redirect you if you didn't have the correct permissions, but still attach the response. Like it, so
why?
you would never see the response. It's funny, even browsers, if you send them a 302 response with a body, they don't even show any way of rendering it. So this I could have not found in Firefox. I don't like that, but so I had to go to Burp for this one.
Shame.
And then there was this one endpoint that required another key, and there was an SQL, and not injection. It was like in a like statement where using like the what are the signs, the underscore for one character and the percentage sign for multiple characters, and like a like statement in SQL. And through combining those two things, I could just read any data from the database, which was also like two things that are really weird coming together in a funky way. And I love those types of bugs.
Oh, those are so cool. It's like the perfect storm, just seeing it happen. Yeah. Now, you've spoken a lot about some really cool vulnerabilities. Sorry, lost my train of thought for a moment. Do you have a favorite vulnerability that you've either found or one that you've used, maybe in a pen test? A good example, I guess, would be like, I don't know, zip slip, if you've used that one before, something like that.
Yeah, one of the bugs that I've used the most is has to do with tar files. So when you untar, so you have zip slip, but then you have the same for tar files, where if you put a file that has ... in the name in a tar file and you don't extract it, it will actually use the whole path, and you can get local file inclusion or local file override. And it's funny because like almost every code base I look at in GitHub, they realize, okay, ... is bad. We have to filter this out of these tar files. But the tar command has an option -- use absolute path, which just allows you to set /etc passwd as a file name in a tar file. And if you untar it anywhere on your system, it will overwrite the /etc passwd file. And it is like such a funky, weird behavior that no developer ever thinks about when coding something, and it explodes. It works almost everywhere. So yeah, I got some nice bounties out of that over the years.
That's a good one to know about. Admittedly, I'm thinking of some websites that it's like, yeah, I think that would probably work. Well, okay, so we've talked a lot about CVEs, and I do want to make sure I'm still getting to the questions that we had submitted. So thank you for speaking to that. Let's see. So here's a question. This one's from Dong Lee, and I am going to modify this one just a little bit. Dong Lee asks, how do you find a good target for bug bounty? Let's broaden that up a little bit. How do you find a good target for CVE hunting, or just something you want to work on in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of people get stuck on that question because they are so focused on finding a good target that they just hop between things without looking deeply, and they look for 5 minutes on a website and realize, no, this is not a good target, move on to something else. I'll spend an hour on that, didn't find anything, probably a secure target, move on to something else. And that is the biggest pitfall there is, because if you only look for bugs for an hour on a target, well, you haven't even scratched the surface, because all the other hunters who spend an hour on there, they all did the same things, so you're only getting to the same conclusion. However, what you will find if you talk to like top bug bounty hunters, and I think today there was also a blog post from Asset Nodes who found like a critical vulnerability in some service desk. And in some of the first lines of their blog post, they said, over the course of 4 weeks, we found this attack chain. Like, the real cool vulnerabilities are found by people spending a lot of time on a single target. And so my best advice would be to stop looking for a good target and just pick any target and spend as much time as you can on that target, because every website, every application, every product is a good target, because every application is hackable. You just need to find the bugs. And this mindset of every application is hackable is the most important one. I used to, and this was my biggest pitfall when switching from doing CTFs and going to bug bounty, is that in CTFs, I know there's a vulnerability, and it's probably quite clear where the vulnerability is. And then I went to bug bounty, and it wasn't clear anymore. It was a real company, a real application. And I started thinking, this one's probably secure already. No, that's not the case. Whenever I approach a pentest or a bug bounty target or a repository for finding CVEs, I tell myself, there is a vulnerability here. Let's see if you're good enough to find that vulnerability. And sometimes I spend a week on a target and I don't find anything. And then I realize, well, at this point in time, I'm probably not skilled enough yet to find that bug that is hiding in there. But there is a bug somewhere there. And I've got to experience this firsthand, where I was doing like a week of intense research on an open source library. I couldn't find anything. And I was like, I know there's something here. I could feel it in my fingertips. So then I quit. Then a week later, somebody messaged me, hey, I found a critical right here. And it's like, I just forgot to test this one thing and it was critical, So
that stings. Yeah. I feel it secondhand, like hurt for you, man. God. Okay, so you made me think of something kind of random. Just a question I wanted to throw out there. Do you prefer to hack on a laptop or on your desktop?
Okay.
I know this is fighting words, right?
Yeah, I am. So my whole work setup is kind of insane. It doesn't make any sense in the regards that I switch like virtual machines every single week. Like setting up new virtual machines has been fully automated for me because I ruin them all the time. And this, of course, I download projects. I have to download this there. Then my dependencies get messed up. And once something is messed up in my Linux system, I don't even try to fix it. I just get a new VM and start all over again. So I need a lot of storage. So I have my desktop here that has a lot of storage. But obviously, I'm also on the road quite often. I have to go to clients. I have to go abroad for conferences and whatnot. So I have this really insane setup where I RDP into my desktop from anywhere around the world, and then I have like a whole VPN setup. So I route my traffic different ways so it doesn't get hacked at all, because that's what I'm obviously paranoid about. And then RDP, and I have a way here to connect to another device in my apartment so that I can actually use Wake on LAN to boot up my PC, because my energy bills are quite high from having a PC running all the time. So I can boot my PC remotely, I can use it remotely fully, and then it's a whole setup. But yeah, I like working on my desktop computer.
That's nice. That's a nice setup. Thank you for speaking to that. That was just a fun question. I know everyone has their own preferences, and I go back and forth all the time. So, shoot, let me go ahead and make sure that I didn't miss the question in chat. Before I continue, was there anything that we touched on that you wanted to speak a little bit more about? This is just giving the opportunity in case I flattened something. No,
not immediately.
Awesome. No, perfect. Just wanted to do a little checkpoint. By the way, thank you everyone in chat for the awesome questions. And Crypto, I told you, thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it as well. Y'all are the best. Let's get back to some more questions about CVEs. So this is a fun submitted question that we have. How did you find yourself drawn to CVE hunting? Was there anything about it in particular that really excited you versus other areas of hacking? Or is it just something cool?
No, well, it's obviously something cool, but besides that, I started hacking also because I wanted to make the world a better place. That's what even before I knew that I would do hacking, I wanted my life to have purpose and to do something good. And so, by looking for CVEs, you're doing something good because you're helping projects get ahead. You're helping make the world a safer space and finding vulnerabilities that could otherwise have huge impact to the privacy of people. to companies, to a lot of people. So that's kind of why I like hunting for CVEs, because you're doing something that's just inherently good, and there's no doubt about it that it's good. Because and definitely with open source projects, companies, they have money, so they should probably pay for security professionals to check all of their code. And honestly,
now that might affect the bottom line. Hold on.
yeah, and they should also like pay for the security of the open source projects they use, which happens way too little. So that's why if I do search for CVEs, I try to do it in repositories of just people that are building stuff because they have a passion for building stuff. I have a passion for breaking stuff. I want to help those people that are doing it for free and making cool stuff. I've met some awesome developers. Like there's this one AI library. It's called LolMS. It's like a crazy library that does everything with AI. You can like make songs out of AI with it, and it's like fully self-hosted. And this guy is just a French dude who works as an AI engineer in his day job, but then in his free time he built like this awesome framework that does everything and it's used so much. And he had no idea about security. Like he's a great researcher. He's an awesome. He knows the ins and outs of AI, but he is not really a software engineer in the sense that he doesn't know how to write secure code. So he had an endpoint called /execute code that would literally execute Python code. And now you may say, okay, that's fine if it's only hosted on localhost. But then I found in CSRF where you could, using a CSRF, execute code on the machine of somebody running it. So, these are, and this is like the basics of security. Don't make an endpoint that just literally runs arbitrary code. But somebody needs to be there to tell this guy it. And this repository was already at like 20K GitHub stars and whatnot. So it's clear that some help was needed there and nobody was going to pay him. So I thought, well, then I will do some work there as well.
Just briefly returning to one of the remarks that you made with caring for others and wanting to make the world a better place. I really view that as like the true sense of a white hat hacker. So I just wanted to call that out and really say how important that is. So no, thank you for that. And thank you for expressing it so well. Not to put you on the spot and potentially embarrass you. Let's go ahead. I know. I love to have fun with my guests here. Don't you worry. You're perfectly safe in Mr. Bones' wild ride. Now we have a super important question in chat. This one's from CryptoCat. When are you making a Hack the Box machine?
CryptoCats, when are we making one together?
Got him. That's the question. There's the question, folks. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Let's give you a quick little breather while I grab our next question and overrate it in the spreadsheet.
This has to happen at some point. This is where the tweet starts to come in, and I have to be like, "Oh, I'm very busy." No, yeah, we should actually do it.
Heck yeah! Just as a quick note, ZeroXDF did hop in chat. If you are interested in that, feel free to reach out to me, reach out to him, and yeah, we can get you all set up. It's not as hard. Have you made a machine before?
I've never made a machine. I've made a lot of challenges, but never made a full machine.
Let's talk about that real quick. Do you have a favorite challenge you've made, or one you really want to brag about? You can brag. It's okay. You can tell me.
Recently, I made a challenge that I quite like. It's not technical. It's not really technical. It's really easy, but also very hard. So what the challenge is, it's called one payload to rule them all, and you have
nice.
Seven different vulnerabilities. So like XSS, SSDI, OS command injection, SQL injection, XXE, and you only have 130 characters to make a single payload that triggers all 7 vulnerabilities at once.
That is cool.
So yeah, I was really happy to get that working and set up, because it probably took me more time to build that. I built the challenge. Building the challenge was really easy. Just make 7 different payload checkers, but then to solve it myself took me like 2-3 days to actually get it going. So yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. That is, do you mind mentioning where that challenge is at? Is that just something you made privately? It's okay if it's on another site. It's okay.
Yeah. So I work together with a company called Wiser. They make a developer training, so for developers to kind of train on security, and they do CTFs every once in a while. So if you search for a wiser CTF, then you can probably find that. I'll share it as well, the link.
Yeah, no, if you don't mind, I'd love to copy that in chat. Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. Put this in chat for everybody. No, that sounds really cool. I really appreciate you speaking to that. Yeah, no, definitely reach out to 0xDF. But yeah, no, thank you for speaking to your challenges. That 7 vulnerabilities with 1 payload. Do you mind if I ask how long it took you to come up with that? Like how long it took you to create that challenge?
Yeah, so creating the challenge was only like 2 hours because it's really simple to write a checker that checks, is this vulnerable to XSS? Is this vulnerable to SQL injection? Like that's super simple because it's just writing insecure codes. And that's what I like about the challenge. Every single individual part is so trivial. Like the first payload you search for it in like big lists of payloads will work. That's not the issue. It's like combining it all together. But I took it step by step. Like I started with like 3 vulnerabilities and then added 1 to it. I realized that my whole idea of what I was doing was wrong because with SQL injections, you can have comments at the end, but then that wouldn't work with, and then with XXE, it needs to be all the way at the beginning because else it won't be detected as a document and whatnot. So you have like strict limitations. And then when you try to put an OS command injection into it, all of that also needs to be a valid bash command that executes. Like it gets tricky, but it took me like 3 days to actually get an end result for that challenge. But I think it seemed that other people, when solving it, found it much easier than I did. So that probably speaks to the quality of the people that were playing the CTF, or to my personal qualities. That's also possible.
We won't read too much into that. We won't worry about that. No, that's so cool. I'm gonna have to go check that out myself. That just sounds like a fun challenge to pull apart.
Yeah.
Let's get back to some bug hunting, just because I need to make sure that I get through all of our questions that we had submitted. This one's a pretty easy one, I hope. Do you have any recommendations for how often to bug hunt? I know a lot of people like doing those 100 days of coding, 100 days of hacking challenges. Do you find that you have any recommendations for like how to improve, or do you think that leads to burnout on kind of, I guess, on the inverse?
Yeah, that's a great question because, so if you're talking about bug hunting as in finding bugs in bug bounty that pay you money, then the answer is very different to how much time should I spend learning. So for my personal experience, for my first 3 years in cybersecurity, I didn't earn a single penny. It was all just learning. And this was some hardcore learning, like spending like 15 hours a day learning. I still remember I went to study in Ireland for a year abroad. So first time in a different country, fully alone for a whole year. And I went to college there and I just did my thing. But then I got home back to my dorm and I would just start hacking. And I didn't see any part of Ireland. I didn't meet any new people, but I became a great hacker because I just spent all my time holed up in my room hacking. And that's kind of, so in hindsight, yes, I probably should have lived a little more, but I have no regrets. It all worked out for the better, and I think that kind of dedication is probably also needed if you want to become a great hacker. Of course, I'm not telling people to just quit your social life altogether, but I dropped gaming entirely. Yeah, you could. It's an option. But for example, I dropped gaming altogether. And I kind of, in that process, for a couple of years, I disconnected with my friend group because we just didn't have anything in common anymore. But on the other hand, I found a whole new friend group in hacking. Like if I would come back to my room and would hop on Discord, and there'd be like 3 people that wanted to do a box with me together, and we just spent all night doing a box together, and that was like a whole new family of people and friends that would. So you will have to make sacrifices, I think, and it's a hard journey. But there's also a lot of like-minded people on the way that are there, and that can become also new friends and whatnot. So for 3 years, I did that without earning a single penny, and then I figured, okay, now it's probably time that I also start making some money, because, well, life is expensive, and
True.
I would like to be able to live and actually like have a dorm room where at night, if I yell too loud because I found a root flag, people won't start knocking on my door telling me to be quiet. You know, that's probably something I would like to do. And I still remember back then I was making YouTube videos, and I had this headset. I actually still have it. It was like falling apart. It's still falling apart.
Do you want to show the people your headset? Do you have it?
Yes. Oh boy. So like,
is that a Logitech one?
It's a Corsair one, and the audio quality is horrible. But my first videos, well, they were all recorded on that, and I'm with the camera of my laptop, so you can imagine how bad that was. I just didn't have any money to invest in a microphone and the camera, because I was not doing much. Besides, well, I was doing a lot. I was hacking a lot, but outside of that, I wasn't doing anything. So I finally realized, okay, I need to make some money. But back then, I wasn't really confident. I had spent 3 years hacking, and I was a pretty good hacker. Like, I won the Belgian CTF competition. So every year in Belgium, there's a competition for all Belgian people to join. And I won that competition, so I was probably a really good hacker, but I didn't feel like it, because people were always telling me it's impossible to become a pen tester and this, that, and company. And I hadn't found any bugs in real life back then as well. You know, that hurdle of, okay, I'm great at CTFs. I'm the first on Hack the Box in my country, but I haven't found any bugs in real life. What if I try to look for a job and I just don't find anything at all ever? But then finally I got my first opportunity to do a pen test. I begged some company to allow me to do a pen test on them. And in hindsight, they paid me like practically nothing, so they were getting the great deal. I was thinking I was getting an amazing deal there. Like, oh yes, I get paid to hack here. In practice, they paid me like probably a tenth of what they would pay for a normal pen test. It was a cool experience, because I spent an hour looking through the Active Directory system of this company, and at the end of that hour, I went to the office of the CEO and I told him, hey, here's the password hashes of all 5,000 employees of your company. You know, that was my first real bug.
That's such a power move.
I was over the moon, you know. This was like, I had imagined me spending a whole month there just doing nothing and finding nothing. But within an hour, I was like, this is not fair. This would not even be an easy machine on Hack the Box. Like, what the hell? But yeah, now I've done pen testing for like 4 years, and I realized that every company is like an easy box on Hack the Box. There is no company. I mean, there are companies where that would be a level of an insane box probably, but most of them are easy level boxes.
I'm going to mute myself while I'm laughing because it's so true. Can we get that as a quote? Every company is actually just an easy box on that.
Yeah, it is super, super true. It's crazy.
I honestly, that's a shirt right there. That's a great t-shirt. So I want to hit on this, and I wanted to hit on imposter syndrome. You kind of talked about it there, and I know it's something that a lot of people talk about. So this is not to beat it to death, but I find that the solution to imposter syndrome is often this composition of answers. Would you be able to speak with how you've dealt with imposter syndrome in your career, even with winning big CTFs?
Yeah, it's honestly something that I'm still struggling with all the time. Like, just last week, I was chatting with this awesome hacker online, like a great guy. I always refer to his blog post. He's called JobOps, and he has like this insanely great blog post on the difference between same site and same origin, which I refer to. Like,
feel free to link that.
Yeah, definely.
Because I mean, I'll read it after this. That sounds pretty cool. That's my nice Friday reading right there.
Yeah, I'm not able to pull it up on the spot, but I will definitely do that afterwards. But I always refer to it because I forget it all the time. And I was telling him, wow, you're such an insanely great hacker. That's awesome. And then he came back and he was like, no, what the hell? No, you're the crazy insane hacker. Like, I'm a huge fan of you. And I'm like, no, you're way better than me. And we just started like giving each other compliments because we both had this imposter syndrome of we're just noobs in the space and I'm talking to this really big, awesome guy. Like we just both had that feeling. So it's definitely something that I'm still struggling with, but struggling with is not the right word. I think it keeps people humble. So in that regard, a bit of imposter syndrome is also very important, because if you go on Twitter, then you'll probably find a lot of hackers that don't have any imposter syndrome at all, and they can come across a bit cocky at times. So
yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, there's and it's. I always realize there are so many people that are better than me. And that's also the reason why I think imposter syndrome is something that everybody struggles with. It's because when you're a beginner, of course, everybody's better than you. But then you surround yourself with like-minded people. And as you get better, those people that you surround yourself with, they will start to see, oh, you're a cool guy. You know a lot of things. But then you go to your next CTF competition and you get absolutely slaughtered by this one team. And you talk to them and you're like, wow, I'm still a big noob. These guys are so much better than me. And then like 5 months down the line, you join their CTF team and you're like, okay, now I'm at the same level. And then you join and then you play in the Google CTF and you get absolutely slaughtered by some other team. And you're like, oh, then these people are really cool. I'm still a noob. And then in the end, you start to win CTFs and you're like at that level. But then you come across some blog post of some guy doing some insane chain that you could have never thought about in a million years, and you're like, oh, damn it, I'm still just a noob. Like, at any point, you're always still just a noob because there's somebody that's so much better than you. And the biggest reason for that is because the field is so broad. You have all these different things. You have game hacking, reverse engineering, binary exploitation, cryptography, web applications, mobile, cloud, just boot to root boxes, red teamers. I consider myself really quite good at web applications. But when I talk to somebody who's like good in binary exploitation, they just seem like this amount of levels better than me at hacking in general. It's because I'm out of my comfort. I haven't done binary exploitation for so long, and it's their field of expertise. So of course they're going to be much better than you. So try to always provide yourself with some context around this guy is better than me, and he's probably better than you overall, but he's not like leagues ahead because they just have a niche. We're right in their niche right now, and if we were to be in our own niche, then we would probably also be able to talk with them about advanced topics. So yeah, I think that's also a reason why everybody has imposter syndrome.
Yeah, no, thank you for speaking to that. We had XeroxTF jumped in and chat, and it was agreeing with you. There's always someone that knows more than you for sure. Yeah. That's, I mean, you hit on it as well with how broad the field is.
Story about that, if I may go into it. I was for a while I was really deep into content security policies. And I was like, okay, cool.
Good old awesome. CSP. Oh, that's the good stuff. Just give me all that. Go on. Sorry. I'm distracted.
I was like all into all the different kind of bypasses and like I was learning all about it. And I figured, okay, now I'm going to submit a talk to a conference to talk about CSP bypasses. So I do it. I get accepted to speak. So I'm like, yes. On the day of my talk, I was a bit nervous. It was my first big talk. I come into the room. And some guy walks up to me and he's like, oh, you're giving that talk about CSPs later. I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh yeah, I'm the lead developer at Google that made CSP. I'm like,
oh my gosh, what? That's nuts. What?
so I was like, there's always somebody in the room that knows whatever you think you're really knowledgeable about, that knows it like 10 times better than you. So yeah.
Gotcha. So actually, like you have BDE when you walk in the room, you just gotta really flex, gotta say, yeah, no, I'm the best hacker here. That's what I'm hearing when going to DEF CON, right?
Oh yeah, totally. At DEF CON, claim you're the best hacker, and then connect to the DEF CON Wi-Fi and just wait for an hour.
I'll be honest, if I see you on the wall, Sheep, this year, I'm going to give you so much crap and it's going to be wonderful. I'm going to make sure to pop in just in case you show up there. Not a threat, just a warning. Anyhow, where were we? The Wall of Sheep and imposter syndrome. Was there anything else you wanted to speak to with regards to imposter syndrome? I know it's such a broad topic that I just wanted to give you the opportunity if there's anything else you wanted to touch on.
Yeah, I also just wanted to touch on the fact that right now I'm talking about it, and I'm talking about everybody has it. We should maybe also make a distinction between it is a real medical disease, and right now we're throwing it around very loosely, and I'm very sure that not all of us are diagnosed with like having actual imposter syndrome, and for some people they really struggle with this, not only in the hacking community but everywhere. So be a bit careful with how loosely you throw it around, because, well, if somebody is actually medically diagnosed with it and they hear everybody just throwing out, oh, imposter syndrome, this, that, and then it can come across a bit strange to them, I suppose. So I just want to make sure that I am not medically diagnosed with it. I just use it as I always feel like somebody is better than me in the room, which is probably not to the full extent of what actually being diagnosed with imposter syndrome actually means. So, yeah.
I did not know that it was an actual medical condition. I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
I mean, either way, it makes sense being sensitive of that. So, no, thank you for speaking to that. That's, no, I mean, it's something to be aware of. It's being conscious of others there. Let's see. Now, so we've had a lot of fun questions in chat. I want to make sure that I get to some of the broader ones here. We've spoken about CVE hunting and CVEs in general. And let's jump to this question. Could you speak to the difference between, or speak to what the difference is between a 0-day, an O-day, and a CVE itself? Just because it's something that I think that comes up and can be a cause for confusion for some folks.
Yeah, totally. So I think I don't know the exact definition of these terms, so this is like my own interpretation. But a 0-day is pretty much a vulnerability that is not known to the world. That's known to a single person, perhaps, or a hacking organization or whatnot. A CVE is a number that's assigned to, or a database entry that's assigned to a specific vulnerability to make sure that the whole world knows about that vulnerability. So that's like the root goal of a CVE, is to kind of just be a database of vulnerabilities to be aware of. Companies can monitor this database to make sure that if a new vulnerability is found in a product that they have, that they can patch it directly. So a lot of CVEs start as, well, every vulnerability started as a 0-day, I suppose, because at some point it was not known to anybody. But by the time it's a CVE, it's not a 0-day anymore. And also it should be fixed with an asterisk, because it's not always the case. I've also published CVEs myself that were not fixed because either the developer did not agree with me that it was a vulnerability. I actually had a really interesting case where there was a library for translating text, and there was a cache poisoning or cache pollution vulnerability in it, where it cached the translations of text. So if I wanted to translate "Ik hou van jou" to English, it would be "I love you." Now, the funny thing about this caching is in certain insecure implementations of this library, you could supply it with a cache key, and the cache keys were predictable, which means that you could actually say to the server, hey, translate this text, but store it for the cache for this other text. So pretty much what I made is I found an insecure browser implementation or browser plugin that translated the text on the page. And I made every instance of "I hate you" be translated, or "I love you" be translated to "I hate you." So anybody using this plugin who would send "I love you" to, well, their loved ones, it would come back as "I hate you." But the maintainer of this library did not agree with the vulnerability. He said, well, it's a mistake of the people implementing it, which, I mean, it's always a bit of context there. It's never really a clear-cut case, or in most cases not clear-cut. But in the end, I decided, okay, look, I think this is a big enough vulnerability to make public, to kind of show the guy, hey, I want you to fix it. I'm going to make it public. And in the end, it was fixed. So that's great. But in that case, it was actually made public before it was fixed. But it still wasn't a 0 day anymore because I had shared it with the maintainer. So that's a distinction there.
Now, you mentioned the difficulties and kind of that acceptance factor in this. I wanted to take a step back and kind of talk about that in general. Have you ever had difficulties submitting a bug? Have you ever had difficulties submitting a CVE or something that you mentioned, like the owner didn't think it was a vulnerability? Have you encountered that in other spaces?
Yeah, all the time. So in every single space where I submit bugs, whether that's on a pen test, in bug bounty, or through CVEs, you will always get some adversity or people not agreeing with you. And it makes sense. You're telling them, hey, what you're doing is wrong. In a way, of course, it's not that black and white, but sometimes people can take your vulnerability as you're telling me that I'm not doing my job correctly, which is obviously not what you're trying to do, but that's the interpretation that they may have. In pen tests, for example, it's common that I submit a finding and that the company says, well, this is not an issue. It can have multiple reasons. The first is that they just don't want it in the report, so they claim it's not an issue. The second is that they don't understand the vulnerability because you haven't explained it properly, and that's why I think it's not an issue. The third one is it's actually not an issue. Don't disregard that may be an option. Like, be acceptant of that, the fact that you may be wrong. So there's various different reasons there, and most of the time it's like good communication can fix it. But in pen tests, obviously, as a pen tester, you supply the report, which is your opinion on their security at that point in time. So in the end, the company doesn't really have much to say there. In bug bounty, it's different because in bug bounty, you only get paid if it's an actual vulnerability, right? So this can lead to some issues, and I've had this a lot, and it's really annoying because things can go wrong in many different ways, where your issue can be fully valid, but it's a duplicate. Very annoying. It can be fully valid, but they have some reason saying that it's intended behavior. I've once submitted an RCE, and the company just said, "Oh, this is an intended behavior."
What? With an RC?
Yeah.
You mind taking a pause and just, I don't know how much you can speak to that, but excuse me, what?
They claimed that it was, and this is like a while back, so I don't know the specifics anymore. I let it go because that's also very important. Like, if you get into these situations, of course, stand up for yourself, fight for what is right, but at some point you just gotta let things go and forget about them because they will else haunt you for years. So you gotta let go. But in essence, it was, I found a vulnerability and they just said, yeah, this is not an issue, and they didn't pay me anything. Or what can also happen is that vulnerabilities get downplayed. It's like, oh, this is not such a big deal. Oh, this RC, it's not a critical, it's like a medium. That can happen, and it's really hard. And when you encounter this in bug bounty, well, first of all, contact the triagers. So the triagers are the ones working for the bug bounty company and not the company that the vulnerability is in. And they will, of course, assess it. But if you still don't agree with the outcome of a triager, then most bug bounty platforms will have some mediation. So an outside person that looks at the vulnerability and that makes a final choice, because at some point, just yelling you to the company and nothing is happening. So somebody just needs to come in and make a decision. And also, there are certain bug bounty companies that take better care of their hunters. So if you have this a lot with a specific company, then just don't hunt with them anymore. And I think right now we're seeing some bug bounty companies, and definitely, in the Web3 space, there are some companies where no advanced bug bounty hunters just want to hunt on anymore, because in all of the bug bounty discords, they're just being blatantly said, okay, they claim that they pay 50K for a bounty, but we found it critical and they only paid 1K for it. So nobody else hunted it anymore. We have big discords with all the great big bounty hunters, and well, the company will get shamed there. So if you have it a lot of times where the company is not agreeing with you, then maybe it's time to go and check out a different place. But also, again, you may be wrong. Make sure that you're right. Secondly, don't just go to Twitter with anything that happens. Like, I have worked at a big bounty company doing the Twitter. It is really terrible if stuff just blows up on Twitter just to find out that in essence the hunter was not correct, or there was a lot more than meets the eye. They claim that they found an RCE, but it was fully sandboxed in a system or whatnot. And then on Twitter they just say, I have an RCE, and the company says nothing is happening. That's also really important, really annoying for the person that actually has to manage the Twitter account of the bug bounty company, because they cannot do anything to defend themselves. They cannot give any more details on the vulnerability. They just have to try to tiptoe around it. But if you think that you are fully right, try to contact a smaller group of people, maybe on a Discord you are, and ask them about it. Because it has happened a lot where somebody went on Twitter and said, I'm disclosing this bug because the company says it's not a bug. And then everybody on Twitter is able to see that it's not a bug, in fact, and that you were a bit silly, which can happen. People make mistakes, but don't be overconfident. Accept that it may indeed not be a vulnerability.
Oh, not to cut you off there. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's for bug bounty. Then we have CVE research or open source libraries. There it also commonly happens that you have vulnerabilities that are not accepted. And that's very often because the maintainer just doesn't understand it correctly. And you need to do a lot of explaining, because most of the times these people are great software developers, but maybe just don't know what an XSS is. And if you just send them, hey, XSS here, alert. Yeah, they've never heard of it. They see an alert and they're like, okay, what's this? But in cases there, if the maintainer really doesn't respond to you, because that also happens, maybe they have, I don't know, died, or they just don't read their emails anymore. I don't know. It's like a random guy.
It happens.
It must happen. So you can always get a CVE issued for a vulnerability, even if it's disputed. The goal of CVEs is not to have a single source of truth on this is vulnerable or not. No, the goal of CVEs is to just make something public and known to the wide world. So you can even submit 1,000 CVEs that are wrong. You will probably get banned. So not 1,000, but if you make a mistake, it's possible to have a CVE issued for something that's not a vulnerability at all. And then later experts can make an addendum to the CVE and say, okay, we've reviewed it and it's in fact not a vulnerability, but it happens. So if you really believe you're right, then you can go to NIST, and on the website you can submit a request for a CVE. Then you can just request a CVE without requiring any intervention from the maintainer or whatnot, which is very useful for dead projects or projects where the maintainer doesn't support it anymore, but they're still used and stuff like that. So yeah.
So having worked at a bug bounty company, you mentioned something just fun there. Have you ever encountered a situation where someone's just, dead and they can't respond?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
In actual, yes.
But go ahead. We have to thread very carefully here, because this is a real situation.
And no specifics, of course.
Yeah, no, of course, but it was a bounty hunter, a great guy. We had actually worked together with him. We had made challenges with him, an awesome guy. And sadly, in a tragic car accident, he passed away. So, stuff like that does happen. It's very tragic. But yeah, that's life, I guess.
Not to bring down the mood or anything. No, that's just very interesting. It's something you would never imagine. Do you have any other strange situations that you can speak to? Not with mentioning specifics, but just weird stuff that happened with having kind of a unique job working in a bug bounty company.
There's always reasons why people don't respond anymore or whatnot. I have one situation where a guy just messaged me and said, the internet in my whole village has gone down for months. Turns out he lived in a village, and literally the power cable was cut in works, and he didn't have any internet for months, and had to drive an hour to get to an internet cafe to respond to their reports. So it's crazy stuff like that can happen. Or one time even it was a 15-year-old got banned by his mom from actually doing hacking anymore. So that's stuff that happens, because some of these proteges are 14 years old and their parents don't understand it. They get banned from using the computer, and it's but also stuff that happens as people go to jail. You don't always. A bug bounty hunter is, of course, an ethical hacker, but that doesn't mean that in every aspect of their hacking they're ethical. And it can happen that people go to jail where one part of their life is like fully ethical and then another part is not ethical. So yeah, crazy situations can happen.
I didn't know what to expect with asking that question, and I'm glad that I did ask it. That is wild. Oh my gosh. So I guess kind of a follow-up on that. Talking about doing bug bounty hunting, this is going back towards I guess having trouble with submissions and really submitting bugs on your own. Have you ever had companies reach out to you directly to do like specific bug bounty that they've said, hey, we really like your work? I private programs aside, have you ever had companies reach out directly to you?
Yes, but then mainly in a pentest context, less in like bug bounty. But that happens all the time that companies reach out. I think if you're a pen tester with a couple of years of experience, you can attest to that you get a lot of people messaging you. So there's definitely companies interested. But I also think companies in general are still a bit scared of hackers. And if they're not scared of hackers, they're probably doing bug bounty, and then they're maybe not reaching out as much. Although if you are and this is also something I can definitely recommend. If you want to do bug bounty, create great relations with companies. Like if you consistently find bugs in a specific company. Like I know one person actually became a millionaire only hacking on Yahoo, for example, and became like very acquainted with Yahoo.
Oh
And
yeah.
and like the best friend of the people at Yahoo side, because his reports were coming in every single day. And well, that guy is set for life on events of Yahoo. Anytime Yahoo needs anything, he'll be the guy to reach out to. I even at one live hacking event, because you have in bug bounty you sometimes have live hacking events where a company invites 40 hackers or 50 hackers to come and hack in person. One time I noticed a hacker explaining the infrastructure of the application to a developer at a live hacking event. He was like, no, you're wrong there. Actually, the way your application works is that this service goes through there and there. And the developer was like, you're correct? What? Like so getting really acquainted with a single application or software can be really, really valuable in creating those connections with companies.
So you mentioned live hacking, and you led me to some other questions. That, admittedly, this is a John question. So companies setting up live hacking events, how would you recommend? Like, say, if I wanted to take this back to some company I work for, and say, hey, I think we should have a live hacking event. Do you have any advice on that, or how? Like, are there resources out there? Yeah.
My advice would be: do not organize it yourself.
Well, there you go.
It is a lot of organization. Like getting 40 hackers from around the world flown into a single place, and like give them a hotel, give them food, make sure that they have something to hack on, make sure that your bounty budget is large enough, make sure that all those 500 bugs that are going to happen get triaged, and manage them, make sure that they have something to do in the evening, make sure they don't get robbed in the streets. Because one time we had a live hacking event where one of the hackers literally got robbed late at night in the streets after going out to a bar.
Gosh.
These are all the situations that can happen. So do it in conjunction with a bug bounty platform, because you think you can manage it on your own, you can't. It's so much work. There's so much goes into like getting 50 people in one place hacking. Yeah.
Do you find on average that those events are worth it?
For
the company. Yeah, for everybody, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, for the company, 100%. The connections that you can make with seeing hackers in real life is incredible. Also, the fact that, if you are a company and you do bug bounty, you will have hackers looking at your application, which is great. The fact that you have 50 people looking at your application at the same time while they're all communicating with each other, like in a live hacking event, if somebody is like, I need an XSS on this subdomain, they will just yell, who has an XSS in this subdomain? Some guy will be like, I have this, but I don't have a CSP bypass. Some other guy will be like, I have a CSP bypass, and boom, all that together becomes a really cool vulnerability. That's a bug that would have otherwise never been found if those 3 people weren't in the same room hacking on the same target for like 3 days straight. You know, that's like
Gosh,
so
that
for a
must be
company,
so
it's
cool.
pretty valuable.
Is it? I mean, have you ever seen that just like come to life? Like a bug just materializes?
Oh yeah, totally, all the time. Like we there's actually in Belgium and the Netherlands, we have a very close group of hackers, and two of them have made kind of this event called the Hacker Hideout, which is where we just last time they rented a basement somewhere in a city in the
Nice.
Netherlands. Yes, and we were just 20 people in a basement, and this was happening. Somebody was like, I think I have an SSTI here, but I'm not really good in this framework, this thing. And somebody else was, oh, I'm the expert in this framework. Let's look together, and they collaborate. That kind of collaboration happens all the time, and you can see bugs coming to life that would have otherwise not been found. It's really cool.
That's gosh, that must be magical just watching that. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a critical. Oh, okay, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and everybody gets excited. And you know, like if somebody says, I have something here, everybody goes to their computer. And it's just like 10 guys standing around a small laptop screen being like, oh my God, we're so close, we're so close. It's like, it becomes like a whole team effort, you know? It's really cool.
Oh my God. Thank you for speaking to that. I've realized that was a John question, so I very much appreciate that. Now it looks like we just have a couple questions left. We'll end off on advice that I know we've already spoken a little bit about advice you would give to a beginner. We'll end off on that. But before that, we had one more fun question. This was at almost the very beginning of the stream, and I wanted to save it because I really liked this one. In performing bug bounty, CVE hunting, anything, or pen testing in general, have you ever discovered malware?
I have discovered web shells that I did not put there. So you know, you do your scanning with using word lists of the internet, and those word lists, well, they will contain like webshell.php and whatnot. And the moment you get a hit there, that's like, oh, this is probably not a real page that the developers meant to put there. And then you open it and it's like a web shell. That has happened once to me, only once though. But we've had, and not in my personal pen test, but with colleagues, we've indeed had cases for in internal network pen tests where we found indicators that somebody else had been there, and those things do happen. And that's like, call the client immediately and be like, something really bad is going on. And yeah.
It's such a fun feeling, and then all of a sudden your gut falls out and it's like, oh, you've been compromised.
But it's also because as an ethical hacker, you will like only ever interact with the ethical hacking part.
Yeah.
You kind of see the bad guys in action. Like those are the people that we are preventing from actually being able to do terrible things. It's so weird because I don't know about you, but personally, I never really come into contact with the dark side of hacking. And I had this really funny interaction at one point where I had a knock on the door, and I opened the door. It's like 3 police people, and they're standing there. I'm like, okay. They're like, can we come in? And they're like, oh, we've seen this article in the news that you're a hacker. I'm like, yes. And they were pretty much asking me if I knew any malicious hackers. And I was like, honestly, I have no idea. I'm an ethical hacker. I only interact with ethical people. I have no knowledge of who might be doing bad stuff. That's totally outside of the scope of my work and my job. So yeah.
I only really interact with those folks when they're getting banned from the Hack the Box Discord. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen plenty of that. But anyhow, no, that's yeah, it's wild. Shoot, let me grab that question before I get distracted here. Thank you for speaking to that. It's wild to think about, you know, just everything that goes on there and just bumping into the dark side, the Sith, if you would.
Yeah.
So before we wrap things up, first and foremost, for everyone in chat, if you guys have any last minute questions, I can't promise I'll get to all of them, but feel free to toss them out there. I did want to get to this question from Anissa Armedi. Apologies if I butchered your name there. I'm very new to the field and everything. I'm a first year, I'm not sure what COEs, College of Engineering, I'm guessing, student just getting into cybersecurity. Where do I get started? You don't necessarily have to speak specifically about Hack the Box. If you want to, you can, but I'm not going to hold you to that. Do you have any advice for someone that's a beginner? It may be someone that wants to go the path that you've gone and do bug bounty and CVE hunting, things like that.
Yeah. So pick any free resource, and I'll mention some resources, and just throw yourself into it. For me personally, I started with Hack the Box. So I discovered Hack the Box when I wanted to become a hacker, and I threw my whole life into Hack the Box. I did it day and night, and that's how I learned so much. And then by the time that I was done with Hack the Box, I wanted to become omniscient, but sadly I only got to Guru. I was at 99%, but I just couldn't get the odds.
That's brutal. Oh no!
I was so close with some random heap exploitation challenge. Stood between me, and it just didn't work out. And then boxes started coming in, and work started, and I was lost. So yeah, it's still a bit.
Hey, there's always next year, right?
But I threw my life into Hack the Box, and that's where I progressed a lot. There's a ton of resources. So you have Hack the Box, you have the Portswigger Academy, also a great place. Like if you finish all those Portswigger Academy labs, people ask me for free resources, and I'm like, well, have you done all the Hack the Box boxes that are free right now? Have you done the whole Portswigger Academy? Well, if you're done with that, then you can come back to me and ask me for more resources. But for the time being, I think you have enough to kind of spend your lifetime on. So but those are obviously great. And then CTFs, another amazing resource that is free. You can even win prizes with it if you get really good at it. There's always write-ups at the end, and crazy people like CryptoCat that make awesome videos on these CTF challenges. So there's so much to learn. And of course, all of these YouTubers that are out there, from CryptoCat to myself, to Live Overflow, to John Hammond. There's a ton of them. Actually, I'm going to share a website, Security Creators. It's like a full list of all security creators and YouTubers out there.
Yeah. And we'll get back to this in a moment. I did remember the other question we had. While you're pulling that up, do you recall the name of the other blog that you were speaking about? Folks were asking just the name of it. It was the article that you couldn't quite find at the moment, but it was that blog in general.
Yes.
Not to put you on the spot for multiple things.
I found that article I was talking about earlier. Yes.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
So that's a blog by JobOps. Great guy. Awesome guy. The article is called The Great Same-Site Confusion. And honestly, that's the best name for an article ever, because same-site is so confusing, and I still get confused by it all the time.
Just going to pull that up over here on the side. Thank you. That's my reading for later. Chat's very happy as well. So just relaying that as a thank you from chat, and thank you as well for me for pulling that up. And then you said there was that cybersecurity content creator site that I can post in there. And for those, go ahead.
And I'm looking for it right now, because we have with all of the cybersecurity YouTubers, we have a Discord where we pretty much can discuss anything that has to do with creating cybersecurity content. It's awesome because it happens that our videos get removed from YouTube, or because it's hacking and they get automatically.
What do you mean
removed.
YouTube's so great about security content? I certainly haven't had videos removed at all. No, YouTube's great about this. Go on.
Yeah, exactly. So if it gets removed, then we actually have somebody working at Google in the Discord to help us. So that's really awesome.
That is really cool. No, that wow. Admittedly, I might need to join that Discord, because I have some older videos that are very clearly educational, but that's okay. That's not to air on here. Those are different grievances. Thank you for pulling up that link. Here, let me go ahead and post that into chat.
Yeah, it's awesome. Cool. It's randomized every time. So every time you reload or it should be randomized where random YouTubers come up. And it's just a big list of content creators in the hacking space. So yeah, definitely check that out. So there's also some non-English creators there that are separate. So if you find some people in your specific language, it's also possible. But yeah, really cool site.
Thank you for noting that as well, especially because we do have a lot of non-native English speakers here in the chat. And if you're a non-native English speaker and you're in the chat, shout out to you. Thank you for being here, especially if you're dealing with my Midwestern accent and all this.
But not a shout out if you make CTF write-ups in like Korean or something, and then I need specifically what's in that write-up. Not a shout out there, because somehow the Google translation is going to be the cat ate a dog or something like that, and then some binary explanation stuff. I don't know.
I feel like there's a lot of personal anguish in that comment.
Oh
I can pull. You want to talk about that?
Exactly what I need, but it's fully in Chinese, and it's. Oh.
I kid you not. I have had that happen before for CTFs right up. I know exactly the pain where it's like, I kind of see how you got to this, but I don't know how to read Mandarin.
Yeah.
Crypto is suggesting that we all learn Korean to troll you.
Sure. I'd be more than happy to see like the Korean language get a full revival just to troll me. Like,
if you're responsible for that,
all across the world, classrooms filled to learn Korean just to troll me. That would be like, imagine you get in a coma and you wake up and everybody in the world speaks Korean. That'd be insane.
I'm gonna learn just enough Korean that I can greet you in that when I see you at DEF CON. I just want you to think the whole thing's a fever dream.
Yeah. I would not be surprised.
Am I actually at DEF CON or am I just on the couch? Oh my gosh. Well, I think that about actually here. Let's see. We did get one more fun question. Let's get this one just for fun. Since you're such a fantastic content creator, this is a really good question that I wanted to bring up. Is creating a blog or having a YouTube channel, having a portfolio of sorts, do you find that that's an unspoken necessity for a newbie to get a job interview? Or do you find that that's just something that helps you stand out? Also, Crypto wants to know if you're going to DEF CON.
I am going to DEF CON Crypto, so we'll definitely have to meet up there. Anybody that wants to meet up on DEF CON, send me a message on Twitter and we'll do some cool meetup. But to get to the question, so is it an unspoken necessity? No, it's not really unspoken and also not really a necessity. I mean, if you're applying for a job, you just need to make yourself attractive to the employer. You can do that in like so many ways. OSCP that you mentioned is a great way. If somebody has OSCP, like getting a pentester job is quite easy. But personally, I got a pentester job without getting OSCP. And I only got OSCP just because I wanted to prove to my colleagues that it's really easy. Because, my colleagues, they were saying, oh, I'm doing the OSCP and it's so difficult. And I was like, oh, it's easy. And they were like, I don't believe you. So I wanted to prove to them that it was actually easy, which it is if you're a good pen tester. So that's why I think it's a great requirement, because as a good pen tester, you should be able to do it with ease. But you need to make yourself attractive to jobs. Creating a blog or a YouTube channel is an awesome way of making yourself attractive, because it shows that, one, you're technical, because the people can review your work and see, oh, that's a cool technical topic that you wrote about. And secondly, they can see that you're able to, do the business, because the business of security jobs are not just the technical part, they're also writing the reports, talking with people, making sure that change happens. Because you can find 1 million bugs. If you don't tell anybody about them, if nobody's going to fix them, well, then what's the purpose? So, it's a great way of making yourself attractive. And there's so many ways. So, like creating a blog, a YouTube channel, getting CVEs, doing your OSCP, playing CTFs, getting results in CTFs, even just responsibly disclosing a vulnerability somewhere. I have hired someone. They were a beginning pen tester, did not have many credentials, but they were just in the Hall of Fame of a local company. And they explained their bug with so much passion that I knew, okay, if this guy is willing to spend their free time hacking local companies and finding bugs, and I'm sure that we can turn them into a great hacker. I also see in chat also contributing to open source, making tools, even just compiling information online. If you make a list of all the cool blogs of this week, a great way to show that you have that passion. I think that's the most important thing that I personally look for when hiring pen testers is passion. We can teach anybody the skills, but if they have the passion and show that they want to put in the work and actually have done some work at home by in any way, showing that they are willing to put the hours in to learn, then we're hiring them. And honestly, we don't get that many people with a real passion. So yeah.
And I have to care about this? Oh, come on. What do you mean? Real quick off of that joke, just to highlight, ZeroXDF also jumped in and said contributing to open source, just as a fun little contribution there. No, thank you. Thank you for hitting on passion as well, because it's such an important topic. And thank you, 5Z, as well, for the question. That was a great question. Very timely as well. Heck yeah. Before we wrap up, are there any questions that you saw that you wanted to jump back? Anything that you wanted to return to? I know I'm putting you on the spot again.
Well, in the very beginning, I did see somebody say, they asked, would you rather search for SQL injections manually or using SQL map? And that's comes back to do you use tools or do you hack manually? And I find that an interesting question, because what I personally do is I use SQL map so I can pen test faster. Like, I do not have time to manually test every input field for SQL injections. And if I was to manually test every input field for SQL injections, then I would probably just enter a quote and see if it did anything. So running a tool there to kind of detect if something funky is going on is definitely interesting. But what I do, and I do this every time in pen tests, when SQL map finds an SQL injection, I always then go and manually exploit it, just because it also, for the client, it makes more sense, and I have more idea of what's actually going on. And definitely when you're starting to like deal with applications that have firewalls and stuff like that, SQL map will maybe be able to detect that something fishy is going on. But then to actually dump the entire database, it's probably also not something you want to do in a real application, like dump the entire database. That might have some other consequences. So it's better to just do it manually and make sure that you know everything that's going on, than to like rely on tools. And I've had a billion cases where SQL map was able to find the SQL injection, but not exploit them. And yeah, so that, or like where SQL map knew something fishy was going on, but was not actually able to fully find it. It just said it might be injectable or it's doing something weird. And then if you look into it manually, you see, okay, this is going on, and then you can go further.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. I'm glad that I mentioned jump up for that question, because that's very insightful as well, just because a lot of people like there can be some sort of blind reliance on those tools.
Yeah. That's the big issue of blindly relying and not understanding the basics. It's like, as a pen tester, you have, or as a hacker, you have the great opportunity where like you will never just be a parrot. You always have the choice to dig deep and do your own thinking and understand everything. In many jobs, like if you're a bank teller, you might as well just be a very advanced AI chatbot that just has certain tasks and executes.
I mean, you're right. You're spot on.
So as a pen tester or a hacker, you have this freedom of actually having time to just spend on an application and finding vulnerabilities in any way possible. It doesn't matter. Why would you waste that time by just relying on tools and repeating the same steps every pen test, every time doing the exact same thing? Like, that's just a waste of time and talent. So don't rely on tools. Make sure that you fully understand what every tool is doing. Because again, everybody's running the basic tools. In bug bounty, if you just expect to run nuclei on 100 targets and expect to find bugs, well, you're not in luck. Whereas if you actually understand how nuclei works and you find a newly published CVE and you write a template for it and you spray that, then you can actually have success. But you need to fully understand how your tools work to actually use them effectively and in new ways. Yeah,
absolutely. We did get one very, very good question here right at the end that I wanted to pull up. This one's from Agala Sara. Sorry if I mispronounced your name there. That's a very cool name, though. So you mentioned CVE hunting, and we've talked a lot about the level of expertise that it takes to find CVEs, and that it's often less than you expect. Sarah asked, do you need to be very skilled in web development if you want to be able to find CVEs in websites or web programs?
So do you need to be good in web development? In my opinion, you don't need anything. And then there's actually a really funny situation where my previous boss, he challenged his girlfriend to find a vulnerability. This girlfriend, she had never done anything in IT at all. And she was able to find a bug in Bug Bounty and got paid like $500 for it, literally without any knowledge of hacking it. And these are like, for example, logical bugs where you don't need to know the bytes. For an XSS, you need to know how JavaScript works and how HTML works. But for certain bugs, like trying to apply a coupon code twice, you don't need to know any technical knowledge. You just need to think outside the box and think about funky ways. Like the rules that are known, the rule is you give a coupon and it subtracts code. Well, what if you do it twice? You don't need any technical knowledge for that. So it is possible to do things without having any knowledge. And that's what makes hacking so cool. But of course, the more knowledge you have about anything in IT, it's always going to be applicable. I don't know how to write PHP codes. So in the beginning, when I faced PHP applications, I didn't really know what was going on. It was just looking into the dark, and I had a lot of struggles. But by now, I've never written any PHP program in my life. But right now, I'm probably fluent in PHP because I've seen so many challenges. I've just seen it so often that you pick up a lot of things by just doing it. And anything you do and anything you spend your time on will be valuable. Is it a requirement that you now start developing websites to know how they work? No, but I mean, it's all skills that are transferable and that will help you in the long end at some point. So if you're interested in web development, learn it. If web development bores you and takes the passion out of hacking for you, then okay, skip it. And at some point you might feel the passion for it and actually learn it. You might not, but that doesn't mean you won't be a great hacker.
Absolutely. We're getting so many good questions here at the end. Thank you so much for speaking to that in depth too, just because there's so much fear factor involved in that. And it's so important to talk about the fact that no, the fear factor, it's all in your head. It's all in your head. You can do it.
Yeah, totally. Everybody can do it. Like that's, and everything is vulnerable and everybody can find vulnerabilities. Like it's something that should be known to everybody. It's like a fact. It's not an opinion. It's a fact.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead. This one, I'm going to try to make this one a shorter question just because we are right at the end here. This is a really fun one that Yoshi slipped in here right at the end. By the way, thank you, chat. You guys are throwing some awesome questions out there. There you go. Get a thumbs up from Pink too. Heck yeah. What are some of the most common, what do you find are underrated skills that you need as a hacker or as just an infosec professional?
So the things that I see are sought after the most is right now mobile and cloud. And it's something that I'm personally at the company I work for at Torion, we're looking for people that have those skills. So I don't know if that's like across the whole industry, but I think mobile is definitely a skill that's needed more in cloud as well. But the funky thing is that this is also very regional, I think, and geographic, because I've also heard in other companies where there was a huge need and an ask for Active Directory professionals. But then in Belgium, we sometimes have a hard time selling those assessments because companies, they don't want it. So I think it all depends on where you are as well and like what companies around your area are already offering. But if you want to know what's needed, well, open like LinkedIn and look through the jobs and see what the job specs for pen testers in your region are asking for.
Thank you for, by the way, just as a general comment, you give very actionable advice, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for the actionable advice and the great responses. And thank you, chat, as well. You guys this has been a fun Friday. Thank you so much. Well, we're about at time, and I want to make sure I'm respectful of your day because this is time out of your Friday too, and I appreciate it. Do you have any last advice before we wrap things up? Anything that you just, I guess, advice in general? It could be investing advice. I don't know. You go nuts. Have fun. The world is your oyster.
Okay, so my last advice, the world is my oyster. Jesus. If you made it this far, okay, I got it. If you made it this far in the live stream, if you made it this far in the live stream, that means that you have something that you probably, if you spend 2 hours listening to me, that probably means that you have the right passion and intentions and you are going to be able to make it. So I want you to know that whatever your goals are, you are able to make them as long as you put in the work. and I fully believe in all of you. I fully believe that you all have the right intentions, and well, I hope that every one of you will make the world a safer space together. So yeah.
That's such an optimistic note to end on. I was going to mention if you fell asleep with the stream up too, that's cool as well.
Yeah, if I bored you to sleep, that's awesome as well. Watch my other YouTube videos asleep as well. I don't know, gives me watch time, I guess. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to end this off before we go too far off track. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for having fun with us here. This has been fantastic. I can't thank you enough. It's been a real privilege being able to interview you and ask all these awesome questions from chat, and admittedly a couple of my own. So before we wrap things up, do you want to mention again where the awesome folks can find you, and if you have any shout outs?
Yeah, totally. So find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Don't find me at my house. Find me on DEF CON in a while.
Find me at my house.
Yeah, it's. I've never had that happen, so let's keep it that way.
God, you got me to. Yeah, wow. I did not expect that one. Anyhow, you continue.
And I just want to give a shout out to all the other YouTube creators that are creating security content. There are some awesome people making free resources for you to learn. Again, the website that I shared earlier, check it out. Go and subscribe to all of these cool people, because all of them are doing are making free trainings that honestly they could charge thousands for, but they are not. So be grateful of that and give them some respect.
Heck yeah. Thank you. What a wholesome way to end the stream. Thank you so much. I thank you everyone who's been here. This has been an amazing stream. And just as a quick thing, here, 1 second. Let me go ahead. I can post that link in there just one more time. Oh, Emma's already got me. Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you everyone for being here for another awesome Hack the Box AMA. I think that about does it for us today. But yeah, until next time, happy hacking. Thanks everyone.
Happy hacking. Take care. See ya.
Thanks all. Here, let me go ahead.